So Netflix just dropped this 6 episode mini-series, limited series, however you want to call it, called Karma. This follows 6 individuals that all of their paths are going to cross in one way or another. But man, this series was fucking wild from start to finish, and I'm going to get into all of it in this video. So definitely hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's name here. You know what I'm saying? I'll give some people nicknames and whatnot. So this series kicks off. We see this abandoned building being burnt down, and there ends up being somebody else in there that is a survivor. They get put in the hospital, and they're in just really bad shape. They got like really severe burns and whatnot. And one of the doctors is kind of troubled by this, just based off of the name that gets dropped, Jay Young. And this is where our story starts with the debtor. That's the first episode. And what we learn about this character is he owes money to a bunch of loan sharks, and he has about 30 days to pay up or they're going to come collect. And yeah, this leads to a series of events, because what he ends up doing is, he sees that his father's in the hospital, and some guy wants to kind of pay him out of pocket to not go to the police. And he kind of takes advantage of this. He's like, oh man, this is easy, but that's not enough money. So what he ends up doing is some fuck shit. He ends up hiring somebody to kill his father, because his father has this inheritance of like 500 million won or something like that. And it has to look like an accident. But things start to go really left when he hires Gil. I'm just going to call him Gil for short. A dude that he used to work with. He thought like, all right, this guy's a tough guy. He seems like he can get this job done. But what ends up happening is the police find his father's body in the mountains, which leads to the next episode where we get introduced to Glasses and Yu Young. Glasses is like this, I forget exactly. I think he does like acupuncture or some shit like that. He doesn't know how to really interact with females. He just woos them with money, and not knowing that he's in on like a whole type of scam, he goes on a date with Yu Young, and things are seeming to go well. She doesn't want to go out and get dessert. She wants to go back to his crib. He ends up getting kind of drugged, and they kind of wake up, and she tells him, I gotta leave. My friend's father was in an accident. So they're driving, and on the way to drive her to the hospital, she starts to get a little freaky, and it's all really a distraction. Then something hits his car, hits this windshield. It's not a deer. He ends up hitting what's his face's father, and this makes him go kind of crazy and start to freak out. Then we also get introduced to another character, the Witness. This is our first introduction to his character, and he pretty much like drains him of all of his money. He kind of puts on this facade of him just being weak and not knowing what's going on. Little did he know that Yu Young and the Witness are in it together, and all of that kind of comes to a head in episode 3, and Glasses gets his revenge by killing off Yu Young, but in return, the Witness ends up killing him. While this is all going on, they don't know that the police have been watching them. Then we get into episode 4, where we get the doctor's backstory, Ju Young, and all the traumatic things that she was involved with, and all these characters that had something to do with her being SA'd back in high school, starting with Yu Young. And I like how that kind of transitioned when we see her dead body, and it transitions into like a flashback of them uh, being in high school and whatnot. And episode 4 is really kind of giving you all that backstory. So she has all of this built up trauma and resentment towards Jae Young that plays a huge part in this overall series, and she's just been waiting to get her revenge. But while that's all going on, there's so much chaotic things going on in the background. Jae Young, or the debitor, and Gil are kind of going back and forth because he wants to make sure he gets paid. Gil ends up killing a cop, and that just turns into a whole fucking mess. And then we see by episode 5 what actually happened with the fire, and how the witness was there with Gil and he was there with the debitor. The debitor was actually the one that was tied up, and the witness ends up switching places. And we also learned that Gil and the witness also have a relationship. They used to be locked up together, and he also helped with running over Jae Young's father. So, the witness, by the end of episode 5, was able to kind of get rid of both of them and kind of take on a whole new identity. But he didn't know whose identity he was taking on, because Jae Young owes money to loan sharks, so he has to deal with that and deal with the fact that Ju Young wants her revenge for all the trauma that Jae Young has put her through. And she had him dead to rights, because she had this detective kind of help switch out these pills that he was using for his pain to kind of slow him down. But one of her colleagues, I think his name was Jung, he kind of stopped her from making a decision that's going to affect not only her life, her career. And we get a little interesting reveal about his character. So then all these storylines start to kind of connect, and you start to see that all this karma is starting to catch up with these different characters. But the only one that gets good karma and is able to kind of get some resolve by the end of this is Ju Young, thank God. And then when we get to episode 6, everything is seeming to go smoothly for the most part for the witness. But he learns that with this inheritance and stuff with Jae Young's father, he switched it to the church, you know what I'm saying? So his son gets nothing. So either way, Jae Young was going to be dead regardless. So it was just so many crazy twists and turns, and how all these characters connect with one another. And the witness didn't find out who Ju Young was until like the last minute, when he went to the house, and he's taking on this guy's life, and he realizes he gets picked up by a bunch of loan sharks. And then we also learned that Ju Young's colleague, Young, at night, he works for these loan sharks as the doctor there, to make some extra side money. And he just so ends up running into the witness, and ends up killing the witness. He's just like, yo, just think of this as karma. And and Ju Young is able to get her resolve. And yeah, this was a crazy series just overall. I think that's like the best way I can kind of break down these 6 episodes. It was wild. I want to know your thoughts. Let me know how you guys feel about it in the comments below. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.